Thanksgiving was always a big deal in our family. My mother's roast turkey, the endless pies, the loud arguments over board games, and the inevitable storytelling that ended with someone crying or laughing so hard they'd choke on their wine. It was messy. It was imperfect. But it was ours. So when my phone stayed silent this year, no text about the menu, no group chat full of chaotic planning, I figured something was wrong. Maybe Mom was overwhelmed. Maybe the tradition had just gotten too hard to keep up. I waited, checking my phone more often than I cared to admit. But the silence stretched on. Finally, I called her. "Hey, Mom," I said lightly, pretending not to feel the tightness in my chest. "Just wondering what the plan is for Thanksgiving this year." "Oh, sweetie," she replied, her tone syrupy but brittle underneath. "We're not doing anything this year. Everyone's just too busy. Work, travel, you know how it is." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Right. Yeah, makes sense, I guess. But it didn't. Not really. Because just last month, during my niece's birthday party, my sister Jenna wouldn't stop talking about how excited she was for Mom's stuffing and Dad's weird cranberry sauce from the can. They were already making plans then. So what changed? Or rather, what hadn't changed? I, Ella Montgomery, the quiet one, the divorcee, the one who'd taken time off from her own healing to help Mom when she had surgery last spring, I was the only one who hadn't changed. And maybe that was the problem. My sister had once joked that I was the family's soft spot. I thought it was affectionate. Now I realize it might have been a warning. The days passed. No texts, no calls, no group photo like every year, with everyone wearing flannel and holding up wine glasses. Maybe they really weren't doing anything. I told myself I didn't care. I had work to catch up on anyway. Maybe I'd order Chinese food and watch a movie. But on Thanksgiving Day, around noon, the quiet in my apartment felt suffocating. The city outside was deserted. The only sound was the low hum of my refrigerator and the clinking of forks and knives I imagined from every other apartment on the block. So I grabbed my coat and decided to walk. Maybe I'd grab a coffee, clear my head. That's when I saw it. Through the frosted window of that cozy Italian place my parents loved. There they were, all of them. Mom, Dad, Jenna, her husband, my two nephews. Even Uncle Ray, who supposedly couldn't travel this year because of his back. They were seated around a large, candle-lit table, plates piled high with food, laughter erupting from the group like music. I froze. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad timing. It was a choice. I stood outside for a full minute before pushing the door open, driven more by instinct than logic. The warmth and noise hit me all at once. Laughter, silverware clinking, the scent of roasted garlic and butter. Heads turned. Conversation halted. Jenna saw me first. Her smile faded. "What are you doing here?" she asked, blinking. "I was just walking by," I said, my voice thinner than I wanted it to be. Mom recovered first. "Ella, we didn't think you'd want to come. You've been so busy with everything." "Everything?" "You told me Thanksgiving was off," I said, my voice shaking. My father cleared his throat, suddenly interested in his water glass. Jenna leaned back in her chair, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "Well, maybe we just thought it'd be more comfortable this way." "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew. "You don't really belong in this family anymore," she said. And then, laughter. Like it was a joke. Like I was the punchline. I didn't cry. Not then. I simply nodded, turned, and walked out. The cold air outside slapped my face, but it felt kinder than anything that had just happened inside. I walked home in a daze, numb to the cars passing, the holiday lights twinkling in storefronts, the smell of turkey wafting from every direction. My phone buzzed with a notification. An email from work. I deleted it without reading. That night, I sat on my couch staring at the ceiling for hours. I thought about all the years I'd been there for them. How many times I'd rearranged my life to show up. The holidays I'd spent cooking when Mom was sick. The birthdays I'd planned for Jenna's kids. The nights I'd held her hand through her own divorce. And now I was just cut out. Like I didn't exist. Like I had never existed. But I wasn't going to cry. Not that night. Because deep inside, something else was beginning to stir. Something stronger than grief. Something colder than disappointment. Something that would wait until tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up early. Not because I had anywhere to be, but because sleep had become impossible. My mind kept replaying the scene in that restaurant on a loop. My sister's smug face, my mother's silence, the way everyone had just gone along with it. Like I was a stranger who'd wandered in off the street. I kept wondering how long they had planned it. When exactly had they decided I wasn't worth inviting? Had they laughed about it? Felt guilty for even a second? The house was silent. No texts, no apologies, not even a passive-aggressive, "Hope you're okay." And that silence said everything. I opened my laptop and did something I hadn't done in years. I started writing it all down. Every moment, every memory, every time I'd been pushed to the side or made to feel small. I didn't know what I was writing it for. Closure? Clarity? A reminder? Maybe all three. I poured myself a cup of coffee and stood by the window. Snow was beginning to fall lightly, just enough to dust the streets and soften the city's usual harsh edges. But inside me, everything felt sharp. And then I remembered something. 3 weeks ago, my mom had asked me for a recipe, my sweet potato casserole. Said she wanted to try something new for a possible future gathering. I hadn't thought anything of it. Just emailed her the recipe and went back to work. But now it hit me like a slap. They had already been planning it. They just didn't want me there. It wasn't that I was forgotten. I was excluded. And then, as if the universe needed to twist the knife a little deeper, a photo popped up on my phone. A push notification from Jenna's Instagram. A picture of the table from last night. Everyone smiling. Even Mom, who hadn't smiled like that in any photo I'd seen in years. The caption read, "Grateful for the ones who matter most." I stared at the screen, my hand trembling. Family first. I wanted to scream, or throw my phone, or curl up and disappear. But instead I took a screenshot. It felt like evidence. Evidence of what exactly I wasn't sure yet. But something inside me had shifted. The sadness was still there, but something colder was wrapping around it. Resolve. After everything I'd done, after all the years I'd bent myself to fit into the mold they'd made for me, I had been erased without hesitation. And not one of them had the decency to call. They could play family all they wanted. Post their curated joy online for strangers. Pretend they were whole. But I knew the cracks. I knew who paid Mom's electric bill last December when Jenna forgot her wallet and they came up short. I knew who drove 3 hours at 2 a.m. to pick up Dad when he got stranded in a snowstorm after a poker night gone too long. And I knew who held my mother's hand in the hospital when she was recovering from her hysterectomy, when Jenna didn't show up because her kids had the sniffles. They'd conveniently forgotten all that. But I hadn't. That night, I pulled out a box from under my bed, one I hadn't opened in over a year. Inside were old photo albums, birthday cards, and letters from my grandmother, who had passed away 5 years ago. She was the only one in our family who had ever truly seen me. The only one who noticed when I was struggling, who called me just to say she loved me, who told me not to dim my light for anyone. Even blood. One letter stood out. Dated November 2012. Ella, never let people convince you that love and loyalty are the same thing. Some will love you only when it benefits them. And when it doesn't, they'll act like you never existed. Pay attention. And walk away when you need to. Love, Grandma. I hadn't understood it then. I did now. The next day, I drove 2 hours to visit her grave. I hadn't been in a long time. Something I felt ashamed about. But when I stood there in the snow, I didn't feel judged. I felt safe. Like she would have known what to say. like she would have grabbed me by the shoulders and reminded me, "You are not the problem. They are." I stood there for a long time, letting the wind cut through my coat, letting the silence wrap around me. And then I made a decision. If they wanted me to stay silent, stay invisible, I would do the opposite. I wouldn't explode. I wouldn't confront them in a rage. I would start by taking back my voice. Because if they thought Thanksgiving was the end of the story, they had no idea what was coming next. 3 days passed after Thanksgiving, still no word from any of them. Not my mother, not my father, not Jenna. Nothing. It was like I'd been officially voted off the island and they had no intention of acknowledging the fallout. And that silence, that cowardice, spoke louder than anything they could have said. At first, I thought maybe I should reach out. Ask them why. Beg them to explain. But then I remembered the laughter. The way Jenna said, "You don't belong in this family." Like it was a long-held truth just waiting for the right moment to slip out. I wasn't going to chase people who had already decided I didn't matter. But that didn't mean I was going to stay quiet either. It started small. I unfollowed them on social media. Took down the framed family photo in my hallway. The one from 3 Thanksgivings ago, when I'd hosted dinner at my place because Mom had thrown out her back. That year, I did everything. Decorated the apartment, cooked for 12 people, made personalized place cards Jenna scoffed at. They smiled for the photos, praised my pie, and then, weeks later, forgot to invite me to Dad's birthday dinner. I'd told myself it was a misunderstanding, a scheduling mix-up. It wasn't. Looking back, there had been dozens of moments like that. Quiet cuts, small exclusions, inside jokes I wasn't part of. Events I found out about from photos, not invitations. They'd been peeling me away from the family picture for years. I just hadn't wanted to see it. But now that I had, there was no going back. On Monday, I returned to work. My coworkers asked how my Thanksgiving was, and I gave them the practiced smile I'd used my whole life. It was quiet, just what I needed. I lied. But inside, I was a storm. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't just grieving a dinner or a tradition. I was grieving a family I thought I had. A version of them I'd created in my head. One where I was loved without conditions. One where I belonged. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their acceptance. And for what? So they could discard me the moment I stopped being convenient? That night, I started going through my finances. Over the last 6 years, I'd loaned my parents over $18,000. Most of it temporary, always with promises to pay it back. But not a single cent had returned. I'd paid for a new refrigerator when theirs broke down. Covered Jenna's car repair after she couldn't get approved for financing. Even pitched in for my nephew's school trip because Jenna said things were tight that month. I wasn't bitter about the money. Not then, at least. I believed that family helped each other. But what they'd shown me now? That kindness had never been mutual. It had been expected. And I had been taken advantage of. I created a spreadsheet, listing every transaction, every loan, every gift that was supposed to come with appreciation, but only earned me silence. The total made my stomach turn. Not because of the number, but because of what it represented. I wasn't a daughter or a sister to them. I was an account number. I printed the list and folded it into an envelope. I wasn't sure what I would do with it yet. But just having it in my hand gave me a strange sense of control, like I'd finally named the thing that had been eating at me for years. The next day, a text came in. It was from Jenna. "Hey, hope you're okay. Mom says you've been distant. Want to grab coffee?" I stared at the screen for a long time. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just another veiled attempt to pretend nothing had happened. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new note on my phone and began typing something I never thought I'd write. Boundaries I am setting with my family. I listed 10. Some were practical. No more loans, no more last-minute favors. Some were emotional. If they can't respect me in public, they don't get access to me in private. I don't owe them my silence to keep the peace. And at the end, I wrote, I will no longer shrink to fit into spaces where I was never meant to belong. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. But I knew this wasn't over. They weren't going to let go that easily. Not after years of leaning on me, guilt-tripping me, depending on my willingness to keep the family glued together with duct tape and denial. I wasn't ready to confront them. Not yet. But when I did, it wasn't going to be with tears. It was going to be with facts, receipts, and the truth. Because if they thought I'd stay quiet forever, they had seriously underestimated me. It was a week after Thanksgiving when my mother finally called. Not texted. Called. I stared at the screen as it rang, debating whether to answer. My heart thudded in my chest, not because I missed her voice, but because I knew exactly how this was going to go. She would pretend nothing happened. She'd act confused. She'd say I was being too sensitive. Still, I picked up. Hi, Mom. Oh, sweetheart, she breathed, as if she'd been holding her breath for days. I've been so worried about you. Jenna said you've been acting distant. There it was. The opening line of every gaslighting monologue. You're the problem. I stayed silent for a beat too long, then said, I saw the pictures. The line went quiet. I saw all of you at the restaurant. I continued, my voice level. You told me Thanksgiving was canceled, but it wasn't. I walked in. You looked me in the eye. And no one said a word. Her voice was tight now. That was a misunderstanding. No, I said. It was a decision. She exhaled sharply the way she did when she was preparing to scold. Ella, I don't know what's gotten into you. You've been so emotional lately. You always assume the worst. I felt my fingers curl into the couch cushion. The old me would have apologized by now. Tried to smooth things over. Asked what she needed to feel better. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. I'm not being emotional, Mom. I'm being honest. For once. There was a pause. Then the switch flipped. Her tone softened, sugary sweet. We didn't want to hurt you. We just thought maybe you'd feel uncomfortable around everyone. After everything you've been through this year, the divorce, your job stress, you've been so sensitive. There it was again. That word. Sensitive. It was her favorite weapon, making me feel like I was the one who needed fixing. You mean the divorce I went through alone? I asked quietly. The one none of you showed up for? The one you dismissed because at least he didn't hit you? She went quiet again. You're right, I added. I have been sensitive. Because I've been surviving. Because I've been putting everyone else first for so long, I forgot what it felt like to put myself first. Ella, she whispered, now switching to guilt. We're family. We make mistakes, but we stick together. Do we? Yes, she insisted. We're all we have. No, I said. You had me, and you made a choice to pretend I didn't exist. I hung up, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for doing it, but I knew that wasn't going to be the end of it. The next day, Jenna called. I let it go to voicemail. She left one message, sharp, clipped, full of fake concern. Mom said you're spiraling. Look, I know you're hurt, but honestly, you've always been dramatic. We didn't mean to exclude you, but it's exhausting walking on eggshells around you. You always make everything about you. Maybe this break is good for everyone. I sat on my bed listening to it twice. Not because I believed a word of it, but because I needed to hear it. Needed to hear the truth of how they saw me. A burden. An inconvenience. A problem they didn't want to solve. So I decided to solve it for them. I printed out the spreadsheet. The one with every loan, every payment, every time I bailed them out. I wrote a short, clear note and mailed it to my parents' house. This is what I've contributed to the family in the last 6 years. Going forward, I will no longer provide financial support. I am no longer available for one-sided relationships. If you wish to be in my life, it will be on mutual, respectful terms. This is not an invitation for debate. It is a boundary. No flowers, no emojis, no love you anyway. Just the truth. It felt cold, but necessary. I didn't expect a thank you, and I didn't get one. Instead, 2 days later, I received a group text from my father. This family is falling apart. Hope you're happy, Ella. I didn't respond, because I was happy. Not because the family was falling apart, but because I was finally stepping out from the rubble they'd buried me in for years. What they didn't know was that I wasn't done, because the past was still hanging over me, and I was finally ready to clean house. It was a gray Friday afternoon when Aunt Marlene called. We hadn't spoken in nearly a year, and even then it had only been a birthday card exchange. She was my mother's older sister. Blunt, sharp as glass, and always a bit of a mystery. She'd moved 3 states away after a falling out with my parents years ago, and no one ever told me why. I let it ring twice before answering. Ella, she said, her voice crackling through the line like an old radio. I heard what happened on Thanksgiving. My stomach tensed. Did Mom call you? Number Jenna did. Tried to get me on their side, I suppose. Thought I'd help talk some sense into you. She scoffed. Didn't realize that child had the nerve. I was silent, unsure where this was going. I told her she should be ashamed, Marlene continued. And I told her something else. Something I think you should know. My heart skipped. What? It's about your inheritance. I blinked. Inheritance? What inheritance? There was a pause. Your grandmother left something for you. In her will. But your parents never told you. I found out 2 years ago when the lawyer reached out to confirm the distribution. They told him not to contact you directly. That they'd handle it. I sat up, blood roaring in my ears. She left me something? Why wouldn't they tell me? I asked your mother the same question, she said, her tone tightening. She said you didn't need it. That you had your career, your fancy job, your apartment. That Jenna had kids, and it made more sense for her to get a little more. My breath caught in my throat. How much? I asked. $35,000, she replied flatly. A savings account your grandmother opened in your name when you turned 21. She wrote you a letter, too. Said it was for your first home, or to start a business or something that mattered to you. My hands were shaking. I only found out the full details when I went to visit the lawyer myself, she continued. I wasn't supposed to say anything, but after what they did to you on Thanksgiving, I couldn't stay silent. $35,000. That was more than I'd ever had in savings at any one time. And they had hidden it, lied about it, reallocated it like it was theirs to give. I felt sick. How? I asked. How did they even access it? Your mother had partial custody of the account, Marlene explained. She was added when your grandmother got sick and wanted someone to help manage it. But it was in your name. She must have used it. I don't know exactly when or how, but it's gone now. Gone. Just like that. I remembered all the times I'd said no to a weekend trip with friends because I needed to stay on budget. The freelance gigs I took to cover unexpected expenses. The years I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with paper-thin walls because I was being responsible. And they had been sitting on my money the entire time. I'm sorry, Ella, Marlene said gently. I know it's a lot, but I thought you deserved to know. Thank you, I whispered. We talked for another 10 minutes. She promised to send me a copy of the lawyer's letter. As soon as we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd robbed me. My own family, my flesh and blood, had stolen from me under the guise of what's best for the family. They'd taken money meant to help me build a future and used it to, what? Bail Jenna out of credit card debt? Help her husband launch another failed business? I opened the spreadsheet I'd made, the one listing every loan, every sacrifice. Then I opened a new document and titled it, What They Took Without Asking. By the time I finished writing, my hands were numb, but my mind was clearer than it had ever been. I couldn't unsee it now. The financial abuse, the emotional manipulation, the rewriting of history. They had built a version of the family where I was always the outsider, the helper, the fallback, the giver, but never the one who deserved anything. But that narrative was ending. Right now. Because this time I wasn't going to sit down and stay quiet. This time they were going to hear me. I didn't confront them right away. I waited. Not out of fear, but intention. I needed time to prepare, to gather everything. Screenshots of texts, bank statements. The printed will excerpt Aunt Marlene mailed me. I wanted to be bulletproof, because I knew exactly how they'd respond. Twisting facts, rewriting history, crying until guilt replaced truth. But not this time. This time, I would control the story. I invited them over under the guise of a conversation. Jenna arrived first, looking put together and smug, like she was coming to a PTA meeting she already planned to dominate. My parents followed, visibly confused. My mother smiled hesitantly. My father looked irritated, like I'd inconvenienced him. We sat in my living room. I didn't offer drinks. I didn't ask about their day. Instead, I laid the folder on the coffee table. "What's this?" my mother asked, eyes narrowing. "Proof," I said simply. My voice was calm, not cold, steady. I'd rehearsed this a dozen times, but the moment still carried weight. "I know about the inheritance," I continued. "The account Grandma opened for me, the one you emptied." My mother paled. My father shifted in his seat. "Ella, it wasn't like that." "You told the lawyer not to contact me," I cut in. "You knew it was meant for me. She wrote me a letter. You chose to keep it." "We didn't keep it," Jenna chimed in, arms crossed. "We used it for the family." I turned to her slowly. "You mean you used it? For yourself? For your lifestyle? Your family was the priority, not mine." "We did what we thought was best," my mother said, reaching for her soft maternal tone. "You were doing fine on your own. Jenna had more needs." "You mean she had more demands, and you enabled them." I opened the folder and slid out the spreadsheet. "This is everything I've paid on your behalf over the last 6 years. Every loan, every expense, every time I covered your bills because you couldn't, or wouldn't." "You didn't have to do that," my father muttered. "But I did," I said, "because I believed I was helping my family. I believed you saw me, valued me. I was wrong." They didn't speak. "So here's what's going to happen," I continued. "I'm cutting off all financial support, effective immediately. No more transfers, no more covering shortfalls. And as for the money Grandma left me, I'm giving you 2 options." They looked at me like I'd grown another head. "1," I said. "You sign a repayment agreement and return the funds in monthly installments. We'll go through a mediator. Or 2, I go to the authorities and report the account as financial fraud. I've spoken to a lawyer. It's a real option." "You'd report your own parents?" My mother gasped, tears springing into her eyes. "You stole from your own daughter," I replied. "I'm not the one who broke this family." My father stood up, face red. "This is ridiculous. You've been brainwashed. That woman, Marlene, she always wanted to ruin us." "She didn't ruin you," I said. "You did." My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The truth sat heavy in the air, undeniable and sharp. "I don't want revenge," I added. "I want accountability. I want distance. I want peace." Silence. Then my mother spoke, barely above a whisper. "You're serious about this?" "I've never been more serious." Jenna scoffed. "You're so self-righteous. All this over one holiday dinner?" "No," I said, locking eyes with her. "All this because I finally realized I was never part of this family in the way I pretended to be. And I'm done pretending." They didn't sign anything that day. Of course they didn't. But they left, and this time I didn't cry when the door closed. The next week, I followed through, sent everything to the mediator, blocked their numbers, started therapy again. Got a call from HR about an internal opportunity abroad, a promotion I'd never considered before, but suddenly felt like a door I was finally allowed to walk through. A month later, a check arrived. No note, no apology, just $500 and a blank line at the bottom. Payment 1 of 70. They'd chosen the repayment. I didn't feel triumph. I felt free. The piece wasn't loud or cinematic. It was quiet, steady, like finally exhaling after years of holding my breath. I bought a small painting for my living room, booked a solo trip to Colorado for the spring, put a down payment on a new car, all with my own money. No guilt, no invisible strings. And on Thanksgiving the following year, I cooked a dinner for myself and a few friends who'd become family. People who had shown up without being asked, who gave without keeping score. No one laughed at my presence. No one made me feel like I didn't belong. Because I did. I always had. I just needed to stop asking the wrong people to see it.